What is up? First off, if you are watching this and you have yet to subscribe to my channel, you're dead to me. Just kidding. I love everybody. But seriously, if you like my videos or you're not sure yet, just hit that subscribe button. And if you don't, go back and unsubscribe later. But go on, take a little second, tap that little button. Today, what we're going to talk about is dirty bulking. And it's specifically kind of should you dirty bulk compared to should you clean bulk. And if this is your first video or you're new here, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're looking for some exact specific answer, or for me to tell you there's definitively a right way or a wrong way, that's not what I'm here for. I mean, I don't think the internet is short of macro calculators. So if you're looking for how many calories do I need, to bulk, and then you want a dirty bulk and add 1,000 calories on top of that number, go somewhere else. Go Google. Again, I don't think we're missing out on any of that information. If you want a recipe for a 12,000 calorie shake, again, Google. That's not my deal, and I think there's more than enough information out there on that. What I'm going to attempt to provide is a little bit more context. And again, take this from, one, because I'm the only person that knows 100% what I've done every single day of my muscle building journey. So some of it I'm going to speak to myself a little bit, of course, having trained since I was 15, and obviously knowing all the things I've done along the way. And then, of course, I've had training partners since then. I've been working as a trainer since college, and I've been working full-time as a trainer, feeding myself, feeding my family since I was 22, and I've been lucky enough to work and train with some of the best bodybuilders on the planet, Olympia champions. So again, I'm going to try and give you a whole bunch of context within normal people, beginner, intermediate, at the highest level, and give you some context and principles for you to hopefully just look at it maybe with a slightly different lens than maybe you've heard about it before. And then again, the benefit, in my opinion, of principles and concepts is you can take them and actually give yourself the right answer, apply them to yourself. And again, hopefully if there's thousands of different people watching this, there can be thousands of different application, where if I just tell you, oh, you weigh this much, you should eat this many calories, and here's how much you should eat for a dirty bulk, even going off of something like weight, it's still going to be wrong for somebody, right? So if I give you anything specific, maybe it's right for somebody, and there's a more than likely chance it's going to be wrong for a whole lot of people. So some of the things that I want to discuss, there's going to be 4 major points that I want to discuss. I'm going to discuss, really, 1, understanding what is actually the limiting factor in you producing results. 2, some of the actual mental reasons and emotional reasons that go behind, what you're choosing to do with your nutrition. Discussing, really the reality of is what you're doing producing results already, and the reality that some things will probably produce better results for some people than others. And then I'm going to discuss maybe some of the sciencey stuff. So again, that's one of the main things people discuss. Obviously, when you're saying, should you do more of a dirty bulk, should you do more of a clean bulk, is really what does the science say? Which again, I'm not implying that's unimportant. Of course it's important, but I always like to say we're not training robots, we're training people. And again, when you bring in all the emotion that people bring and how that emotion affects things like adherence, especially with stuff like nutrition, it's definitely not one size fits all. And just to clarify too, just to make sure I'm specific here, you guys know what I'm talking about. When I say dirty bulk, I really just mean should you go into a giant surplus or a big surplus, maybe 1,000 calories plus per day, or do you try and grow more in maintenance or just a slight surplus? So some people say that you can, grow literally at maintenance calories. Some people say you only need 200-300 maybe calorie surplus per day. Some people even say stay right back and forth. So basically go into maintenance to slight surplus to deficit and constantly back and forth from there. It's not really a discussion of should you have clean food or dirty food, because again, the reality is evidence has more than implied or more than showed, and results have showed that obviously you can have some sort of cheat food or not clean food, whatever that means to you, and still produce tremendous results. And obviously the reality is the devil's in the dose. So again, would it be tough to get huge eating entirely McDonald's? I mean, maybe not ideal, maybe not ideal for your digestion, amongst other things. Is it capable of still growing? Of course, but again, that's kind of a separate topic. So I'm really not discussing the whole clean versus dirty food. I'm discussing really how big of a surplus is really going to be beneficial for you to grow. So the first thing that I want to address, and it's kind of obvious, but you don't hear people talk about it enough, is really what's the limiting factor in your results. And so again, the dumb version that works well for me and I can understand of putting on muscle. So for you smart people that I'm dumbing this down too much, I apologize. But is really, it's all about breakdown and recovery. Excuse me, I shouldn't even say breakdown. I'll say stimulus and recovery, or training and recovery. And just meaning everything that you do in the gym. So that's one part of it. Obviously, you need stimulus. You need something to happen in the gym that makes your body say, okay, we're now in a good spot to actually grow and recover. And then again, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes in the recovery category. Obviously, nutrition is a big one, which we're talking about here. But realize there's also sleep, there's also stress, there's supplements, there's PEDs, depending on obviously what your goals are and what you choose to do. So the thing that I want to address first is a lot of people don't really even stop and think before they, look at their calories and what should I do? Should I clean bulk? Should I carb cycle? Should I dirty bulk? Do you address the fact that do you train like a cupcake first? Because if you train like a cupcake, meaning, I'm sorry if I'm offending cupcakes out there, but I feel like that's a good word to use to maybe not imply, training intelligently, progressively, hard and progressive. But if you train like a cupcake, it doesn't really matter what you do with your diet. And arguably, doing a dirty bulk when you train like a cupcake is a great way to just get really fat. So again, the assumption in going, do I need a calorie surplus? How big of a calorie surplus is that you're at least providing adequate stimulus in the first place, where you're, then you're in a place where you need calories. Arguably, maybe you need more calories to recover and grow. And so again, it's people make this mistake. It's the same people that say, am I overtraining? Well, then again, that implies that you need to address your training when in the reality is you might be under recovering. And so again, it's subtle nuance, but it's a big difference where again, you get people that are caught up on nutrition, caught up on the right diet, and they put a lot of time and effort and emotion sometimes into that. In reality, if I looked from the outside and saw what they were doing, I'd say, no, you really don't train hard. That's your biggest issue. Address training hard first. So again, address that first. Is it recovery that you really need? And then also make sure your other recovery variables are on point. If you're sleeping 5 hours a night, if you're going out and partying constantly, putting all sorts of additional stimulants and who knows what else in your body, or if you're just in a point of life stress, if you're in the middle of, a breakup and you're moving or you've lost a loved one or whatever, like, again, there's a lot more important things in my life, in life, in my opinion, than putting on muscle. Just be realistic that sometimes if your stress is at a, 9.5 out of 10, you're not in a great place to recover and grow. So again, don't try and put this huge value on nutrition if you're neglecting other variables that might be the big limiting factor in putting on muscle. The next thing that I want to address that I think is probably the most important part, aside making sure that you're not about to misdirect your time and effort with addressing the wrong thing, is really addressing the mental and emotional reasons behind why people do what they do, particularly with nutrition. And I'm going to try not to spill over and discuss the sciencey part right now. But the reality is a lot of people diet the way they diet because they're avoiding discomfort and they're avoiding the type of pain that they don't like. And so all I mean by that is some people just perma-bulk. Maybe they naturally have a good appetite. Maybe they naturally like eating a whole lot of food. Maybe they like eating a whole lot of calories and it's easy for them. And actually going into a deficit and feeling potentially hungry sometimes is not a comfortable thing for them. And so maybe if you really could potentially benefit from having more periods closer to maintenance or going into some periods where you're in a deficit for a while, so again, potentially maybe take one step back to take 2 steps forward, a lot of people honestly avoid that just because it's uncomfortable. And again, I'll discuss this a little bit in the sciencey part, but there's obviously a certain tipping point in body fat where it's really not beneficial. And obviously when we look into, again, the sciencey stuff, hormones and things like that, arguably it's detrimental to putting on muscle. So some people, again, are in this perma-bulk mode up to the bulking up to 25% body fat. And the reality is those extra calories are actually, one, not the extra calories themselves, but what are they actually doing when they get in your body? What is your hormone response? What is your blood sugar response? How much fat do you have? What is that fat doing to you hormonally? You're actually putting yourself where over time those additional calories have put you in a position to be worse off of growing muscle. So again, are you in a perma-bulk because you're avoiding the pain and the suffering that can go with being in a deficit for an extended period of time? And on the other side of that, are you avoiding doing the things that will help your physique progress because you're avoiding the pain, one, or the discomfort that can come with force feeding? So some people really, it's hard to eat. I'm personally in that place right now. I've experienced suffering of both, and honestly, having done both of them for an extended period of my life now, I honestly hate the force feeding part more. And some people aren't honest with that. Eating an 1,000 calorie plus surplus, if you're not just eating all soda and something that's easy to get down, soda and candy or something, eating 1,000 calorie plus surplus of clean food, it's horrible. It's a pain in the ass. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. It's literally its own type of pain. to a certain degree. So honestly, some people refuse to eat that much because it's too hard for them. They don't want to do it. They don't want to force feed clean food all day, every day, days and weeks and months on end. And again, if you've yet to experience, I remember a great quote I heard from Jay Cutler at some point in time. This is years ago when somebody asked him what his favorite cheat meal was. And he said, not eating. And I remember at the time, being honest, I thought like, he's kind of full of shit. He's just trying to sound hardcore. But the reality is, I can't even, I've seen it. What he's posted and shared and stuff like that in the past, the amount of food that he had to eat for how many decades on end. And again, even from my own personal experience now, after being basically through 2 decades of essentially spending 95% of my life in a surplus, it's horrible. I hate it. I mean, that's now my favorite cheat meal is not eating. So now I understand. And so some people avoid that. Some people are unwilling to do what it takes and face the discomfort of eating in a large surplus for long periods of time. And then some people are unwilling to face the discomfort of letting go of their Instagram body. So that a lot of people have discussed this, and rightfully so. Some people just want to look shredded year round. And again, if your goal is to look shredded year round and have something that's great to maintain, you just always look good with your shirt off, have at it. I'm not implying there's anything wrong with that goal. But if your goal is to put on as much tissue as your body is capable of putting on, and at the same time, you're choosing though to actually try and stay lean and pretty to gain, the approval or acceptance of peers or others or strangers on Instagram, realize that you're choosing the avoidance of some type of pain or some type of discomfort, and you're preventing yourself from achieving your bigger goal. So take a minute really to realize that sometimes the diet you should be doing is the one that is the most painful for you to have to do. And again, is that really the reason that you diet the way that you diet? Because you're avoiding pain. Next is just the realization, and again, it's tough to separate the physiological and the psychological because again, we're humans. But realize too that I do think that some just works better for others. I mean, there is someone that has probably never gone above 12% body fat in their life and still put on over 50 pounds of lean tissue over the course that they were training. So for someone, for whatever the reason is, I don't care what it is, clean bulk works. So realize there's a component of individuality to this too. Meaning, if you think that there is one way that's definitively better for everyone, I'm going to have to politely disagree. So realize one, maybe for psychological reasons, it just works a little bit better for you. And then two, make sure maybe there is something to your physiology that you just, maybe if you're a hard gainer, you really need those huge surpluses to get over those hurdles. Or because of how you like to train, you just don't have a break. It's constantly gas pedal. You really do train your ass off. You may just respond better to constantly being in a very large calorie surplus. So realize there is an individual component there. And that's fine. And especially realize too, if you are producing results, I think one of the biggest mistakes in the industry is pursuing greener grass. So again, there's people that are putting on, if you're past your newbie phase and you're putting on still 5 to 8 pounds of tissue every year, you're winning. In bodybuilding, that's winning. And again, people are always pursuing more, bigger, faster and thinking, oh, I'm putting on 5 to 7 pounds. Could I put on 9 to 10 to 11 pounds? And again, that's not saying that it's wrong to always approach a slightly, move in the direction of a more maybe efficient path. But also lots of times people will maybe program jump or diet jump looking for this thing, and as a result actually halt their progress or regress when whatever they were doing was already working. So again, realize the category of one, there is an individual component to what do you actually like or enjoy, and whether it works better for those enjoy psychological reasons, or you like or enjoy maybe because you found out physiologically what works better for your body and you're producing results, then stick with it. The reality is there's an individual component, and that's why I do think there's not one size fits all. And lastly, just realize, if you're kind of on the fence, be like, well, I'm kind of open. I don't really feel attached. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Just be honest with yourself. If you are the person that trains your ass off, and you're constantly, again, your body fat's never been above 12% or 11%, and you're making, minimal gains, you're putting on 2 or 3 pounds of lean tissue a year, realize you could be in that category where it might be time to crank it up. It might be time to get uncomfortable. And if nothing else, see what happens. I mean, if you're really measuring and tracking things, I don't think there's ever a bad time really to see what happens if you're not making great progress. So again, take it up for weeks and months and see what happens when you go into that big dirty bulk, that big calorie surplus. If you do know that you train your ass off, and if your progress is at a snail's pace, slow or stalled altogether. And on the flip side of that one, ask yourself realistically, is your body fat above maybe 15%? And that's not, I'm not drawing a line in the sand, but really above 15%, above 20%. Have you ever done a cut in your life? Have you ever taken some time to actually lose some body fat to go into a deficit? And again, I'm not the sciencey person. I just don't find nutrition supplementation that interesting. But you can look at things, you can look at actual markers. You can get things done where you look at things that relate to blood sugar. So morning glucose, ones that are long term, looking at what your blood sugar is doing. I think it's A1C is what it's called, or A1C1, whatever. I'm not a doctor, but you can look that up. But there's ones for markers for insulin. There's markers for inflammation. There's markers for looking at your hormone levels. People will say that with more body fat comes more inflammation. With more body fat comes more aromatization of your androgens. So potentially, producing more estrogen. So it's really look at some of those things, and also then looking at things again. If your blood sugar and all those things, your hormone response is not ideal, if you're eating all those extra calories, potentially where are they going? Are you able to actually make progress in the gym anymore? Are you eating extra calories and the scale is going up, but you're basically just getting fatter? Are you eating extra calories, but you're no longer getting a pump in the gym? Is everything beat up and always feeling like shit? And again, from personal experience, I have made great progress from following the PermaBulk for years. But one of the best times when I actually jump started and produced change, I've shared this before, is the first time I went to a Paul Quinn certification. And again, I had made great progress up to that point, but I was creeping on 16% body fat, according to some very accurate calipers. I was getting to the point where basically for how many calories I was eating and for as big of a surplus I am, I wasn't making as good a progress. And so learning a whole lot of things, again, about hormones, about blood sugar, about maybe certain foods that do or don't agree with my body, I had one of the best transformations in my year of my life in 1 year, going from 1 year to the course to the next, just applying a bunch of those things. And it was a year spent lots of times for the first time in a while going into a deficit for extended periods of time. And then as a result of the other time after losing body fat, improving my blood sugar response, getting inflammation under control. And again, after taking, a step back potentially, then moving 2 steps forward, a step back, 2 steps forward. And again, I've shared this before, and for some reason it upset people, but I don't think it's that crazy. But I went from 210 and about 16% body fat to 222 and about 11.5% body fat. And again, maybe the time frame was right around a year, maybe a teeny bit over a year. But again, I'm saying that the 2 best times, that was one of the best years I ever did putting on muscle. And the other best year I had was my first year of college, where I was just in a massive surplus, getting the most sleep I'd ever got in my life, and just absolutely training my ass off. And that year I went from 155 to 185, and that wasn't even a year, excuse me, that was 8 to 9 months. And again, I got a lot fatter. I probably went lean tissue, maybe put on, you know, uh, maybe 10 pounds of fat or something. So realistically, lean tissue was maybe 155 to 175. But again, both of them were different levels of success using 2 different strategies. And so again, take some time, look over those things, think about those things, think about what might be the limiting factor in your training, whether it's a physical thing, whether it's an emotional thing, whether it's an avoidance of hard work thing, or whether you're just at a point where, again, kind of like I was honestly open to always doing things I thought would improve. I needed someone like Paul Quinn to present information that made sense in a good, in a appropriate manner, and then obviously had some evidence and results behind that to actually show that, hey, maybe this is something that you need to be doing. And he was basically again showing a whole class full of people getting certified what they needed to do. But again, I've seen that again from a coaching level with tons and tons of different people at all different levels, where again, sometimes it was very clear this was one limiting factor, this emotional and mental thing was a limiting factor, and sometimes it was clear maybe they had just run their course on one or the other, and it was time to switch it up. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully you can think about which one or combination of things that you are, hopefully some concepts and things that you can take away, and hopefully get the most out of your physique and the most out of your progress. And as always, if you find this stuff helpful or valuable, please, give me the little thumbs up deal. Give me some comments. Feel free, again, if you haven't already, subscribe, share with somebody. And as always, I appreciate everybody watching, and, take a look out for the next one coming soon.